Good afternoon everyone, this is the Blue Mountains Motor Rail Project. I'm Andy and thank you once again for joining me on another hopefully informative video. Today, or this afternoon, is going to be covering off an issue I found with Hornby Points and some of the Hornby Wagons. And what's happening is, for no apparent reason, the wagons, some of the wagons, are actually taking a leap of faith and jumping off into no man's land for no apparent reason, it seems. And it can be either one way or another way, depending on the wagon, which way the wagon is facing, which immediately springs to mind that there's obviously an issue with the actual wagon. So is it the actual plastic that it's made in? And initial glance, without having a vernier caliper and whatnot, it looks to be okay and seems to be pretty straight and where it needs to be. I'm pretty sure if I measured that there, put my finger there just as a rough guide, I put that there, yeah, that's pretty much where it is. So it's not exact obviously, and any slight deviation can cause issues. However, what I have noticed on a number of the Hornby wagons is, if you actually take one of your wagons, I'll just put these over there, and if you just sit them on the track, if you can actually get it on the track, that is, and you just move the front part of the wagon from side to side, you should only get probably no more than 1 millimeter of play, because obviously you don't want the flanges being pressed up against the shoulder of the inside of the track. You don't want that, because it's going to be trying to ride out. It's going to be wanting to lift up the slightest opportunity it gets, because they're only light. So what you're looking for is just enough play for it to move around the track and be steered in the general direction wherever the track or the rail is taking it. And if I turn this around the other way, you'll see that there's pretty much the same amount of play there. And this is one of the wagons that I have actually fixed, and everything seems to be pretty much lined up where it needs to be. And to prove that point, I'm going to run this loco. I'm going to send it off this little section here. Just bear with me, the track needs cleaning again. So let's send you forward. Nice and steady, go on. You can do it. As you can see, no issues there at all. And if I bring it back, same kind of speed. Yeah, that's fine. That works fine. Okay, so now let's make it go in a different direction and see what happens. And again, slow speed ish. Okay, so there's a little bit of a click there, but compared to what was happening before, this was pretty much jumping off any chance it got. It just didn't want to play the game. So what I noticed is, when I upturned the wagons, they obviously, you have your wheels in there like that, and what I noticed was that either the gap between the inner flanges would be smaller than the other wheel or the other axle, which isn't good. And if you think about it, what you're probably going to get is, on here there's at least 2 millimeters of play, which means if I put that over there, if you've got any flex or anything, if this is bent on this section here, this part of the point, the wheel is going to fall in. If the gap between there and there is too small, the wheels are pretty much going to be riding on the very outer part of the wheel, which is not good. You don't want that. It has to sit on the rail. That's the whole purpose of it. And then you do need a little bit of play, but not 2mm. And if you notice as well, you might not notice, or you might have to just take my word on this. This is a 3mm precision screwdriver. Now I'm looking at the top part of this wheel here, where the axle finishes to a point. And if I rest this right on the hub, as it were, it's actually sitting above where the axle ends to the point. And if I turn this 180 degrees, straight away I know that this 3mm precision screwdriver, when I place it on the hub, is going to be at least 1mm below the point of the axle, which means it's not tracking right. And if I take the other wheel or axle and do the same with the wheel, okay, so the pointy end of the axle is just a fraction above the 3mm screwdriver. Turn the wheel 180 degrees, and that's pretty much okay. That's probably a little bit, could probably come in a little bit, or I could probably move this out a fraction. So let's just see if it's worth making any changes to this particular wheel. Well, there's a bit more play than I would like, so I'm going to find the actual wheel, or the side of the axle which is sitting spot on with the 3mm precision screwdriver, and look at the one where it's actually below. So I would say, I mean, there's not much in it really, there's not much to call. So if anything, I would say this wheel needs to come out a fraction. So I'm going to take a pair of pliers. I don't recommend you do this just for the hell of it. I recommend that you only do it if you really need to. So with a bit of a firm grip, I'm going to twist this wheel round and upwards, and then I'm going to place my screwdriver on the hub, and that actually doesn't look too bad. You really should have gauges for this, but I don't, so I'm just using the old tried and tested method, which is the test it and try it, and that looks to be okay. If anything, yeah, that's about 1mm. I would say I'm happy with that. I don't want to go too far because I don't want to make it too tight. However, this is the problematic wheel, where it's pretty much all over the show, and this has actually come out of the Hornby factory like this, which is disgusting. So I'm going to first and foremost take a grip of that and try and bring this in a bit. So using that as a template, we wanted roughly 3mm for it to sit, and that's a little bit too much, so I can probably come out a fraction on that one. This definitely needs to come out of about 1mm. And again, small steps. You don't want to do it too much. You don't want to pull the wheel off the axle. And you want it even. So you want this even distance there, so that when the wheels and the axles are back in the wagon, obviously there's going to be some play in there. You want it to be as equidistant as possible so that the whole wagon tracks true. And in the case of using Hornby Points, you will find that it should alleviate well, I'm hoping a little bit more than 50%. I would say a good 80% of your issues. If you're having complete failure with everything that goes across the point, even locos, then chances are swap the point out for a more decent one. So Pico or whatever track you're using. Just try and avoid Hornby Points. They're very problematic. So I'm not that far off here, so I'm just going to do one more check. And that's a little bit below the point of the axle. That's a little bit below the point of the axle. So I can come out just a fraction now. On both sides. You just want to turn it slightly, and as you turn it, try and give it a bit of a lift, and it should as you can see, I actually believe the axle appears to be shorter than the other one, and indeed it is. It's like it's off a completely different wagon. The axle is shorter. Can you believe that? So take note. Don't believe for 1 minute that it's always going to be the Hornby point. It could actually be the actual wagon that you're having issues with. Let's make this equidistant again so it looks by line of sight. I could probably come out a bit more actually. So I'm going to do the same thing again. Just turning them equally, small moves, and there you have it. I could probably come a little bit more. There you go. There's your millimetre of movement. Let's get this back in. Be very careful when you're doing this. If you don't have any issues with your wagons, then the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just bear that in mind. Because these things are very fiddly. So I'm just going to ease this back, drop the wheel in as the other side comes out. Come on, in you go. I don't want to be putting any excess pressure on the alright, so there we go. So what I'm going to do now is reverse this back and watch it make a complete liar out of me. And I'm going to make this wagon go down here first. No dramas. Let's come back, slow speed, same-ish kind of speed. And look at that. It's not jumping, it's not climbing the rails, it's not climbing the inside part there. So I'm now going to make it go this way. We'll do it slowly again-ish. And again, it's that point. That point is not exactly a good one. So if the actual wagon can stay on the point, then I'm happy with that. It seems to be this section here. On these ones it was fine, so I'm going to bring it back. Works fine. Only seems to be exaggerated at slower speeds. Look at that. And back again. So there you go. That's my bit of a lengthy video, but it explains as to what to expect with some of your wagons, especially if they're Hornby. I'm not too sure about backmen and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure they would be okay, but it's worth checking. So if you've got any gauges to measure the distance between the inside of the flanges of the wheels, they should be the same. And the other point to remind you is to, let's just uncouple that, is to make sure that when you're actually looking at the underneath of your wagon or coach or whatever, that when you're holding it to one side, as I am here for the camera, not that you can probably see it, is that the distance between this plastic here is the same for this wheel as it is for that wheel, and at the top section here, that the gap is pretty much the same. I mean, there's got to be some subtle variations, and as I pointed out, the actual axle is shorter than the other, which again, that is not a good thing, Hornby. That is not good. So hopefully, if you're experiencing the derailment issues on your Hornby points, it's something to check. Obviously make sure your points are fixed down, secured, there's no bends, warps or anything like that in there, and then look at your wagons. If you're not comfortable doing that, then leave it and probably just swap out the point for a Pico or something like that. Anyway, I think I've gone on at length there. Hopefully that is a help to someone, and that you've learned that don't always trust that if you buy it straight out the shop that it's going to be in perfect working order, because these are relatively, well, I say brand new, they've hardly been used, and I'm pretty sure maybe 20-30 hours of running wouldn't cause the wheels to come in like that. It just wouldn't happen. So that is definitely out of the factory, and these were all kept in their boxes when they were stored. So take note. I hope that has helped you. You found that interesting. Any comments, any suggestions, please add them below. Many thanks for joining me. As I said, don't forget to subscribe, and I say post any suggestions. I'm still looking at ideas for the layout, and hopefully this weekend I should have an extension at the far end of the board. So with that, have a great weekend, people. Stay safe, and bon voyage.